Chapter 1561. She always had a gentle look on her face, but the servants did not treat her very intimately because of that. Now she was angry and anxious, and there was a trace of inferiority in her heart. She blurted out, "Shut up. Can't I see it myself?" The servant glanced at her but didn't say anything. She just left silently. And Yen was scolded early in the morning and saw her daughter like this. How could she be in the mood to eat? She did not let the servants help her. She helped her daughter to the bedroom on the second floor with some difficulty. It wasn't until her figure had left that the servants in the house began to chat. "Sister Lee, don't take it to heart. People like her." One of them quietly comforted Sister Lee, who had just been scolded. They were all hired by Lu Qinghe when she was still here. They had been here for many years, and they had watched Zhong Yuji grow up. Not long after the mistress of the house left, Mr. Zhong brought this person in. He also brought a girl who was about the same age as Miss N. These aunties, who were familiar with all kinds of melodramatic plots of rich families, immediately imagined a love and hate story. In people's hearts, there was a distinction between close and distant. On this point, the mother and daughter of the N family suffered a loss. Not to mention that the two of them had such a shady identity. Although these servants did not say anything on the surface, they could not get close to the two of them in their hearts. If An Yen could always maintain her gentle image, it would be fine. Now, she could not pretend anymore and threw a tantrum. These servants naturally despised her. Sister Lee shook her head gently. She is just a woman who has no status with Mr. Zhong. Does she really think she is Mrs. Zhong? Miss is still here. And after so long, Mr. Zhong has never said anything about giving her a status. She really has the face to put on airs? When Sister Lee said this, the others also covered their mouths and laughed. That was indeed the case. Miss was here. If the mother and daughter wanted to make trouble, it would depend on Miss's permission. Sister Lee thought of An Wen's appearance just now and could not help but look at her with disdain. Did you see Miss Anne's appearance just now? I saw hickeys on her neck, and she reeked of alcohol. I remember that she did not have a boyfriend. Another person also interrupted. If my daughter dares to do this, I will break her legs. After chatting for a while, they went their separate ways. Gu Shengyin finished breakfast with her grandfather and the others. Since she had nothing to do, she took the Wolf King out for a walk. The Wolf King was not a wolf, but a big, majestic dog. When the Wolf King stood up, it was as tall as Gu Shengyin's chest. Its eyes were fierce and its teeth were sharp. It was said that it had the bloodline of a wolf. If it was brought out, it could easily scare a group of children to tears. However, the Wolf King liked Gu Shengyin very much. When it was held by Gu Shengyin, it was obedient and not irritable at all. Gu Shengyin was led around by the Wolf King. When they passed through a small path, the Wolf King suddenly became agitated. It lowered its body and whimpered in a certain direction. Obviously, it was facing an enemy. At the same time, the sound of dogs barking could be heard from the other side. Gu Shengyin looked over and saw a figure who was also leading a dog. Looking at the dog, Gu Shengyin finally understood why the Wolf King had such a reaction. A Tibetan Mastiff. Chapter 1562. Tibetan Mastiffs and Wolfhounds were the most ferocious of the canine species, and they were naturally aggressive. Gu Shengyin felt the Wolf King's restlessness and patted its head helplessly. Don't make a fuss. If you scare people, I won't bring you out next time. He Lu also heard what was going on here. If you bark again, you won't have meat for dinner. His threat was very simple and crude. But it was this simple and crude that made the big guy under him obediently listen. It put away its teeth and began to dig the ground gloomily. He Lu glanced at him and didn't say anything. He turned to look at the woman who was leading the wolfhound not far away. If his memory wasn't messed up, he should have seen her a few days ago. In another place, this woman seemed to have been cheated on, but the way she shook off the scumbag was very handsome. While He Lu was thinking, Gu Shengyin had already walked towards him. Obviously, her target was him. Hello. Gu Shengyin stood at least 3 meters away from him and greeted him with a light smile. He Lu wasn't good at getting along with women, especially unfamiliar women. He nodded his head in acknowledgement. The Tibetan Mastiff under him started to bark again because of the wolfhound's approach. He Lu pulled it twice, but it didn't listen to him. If the two of them could understand animal language, they would probably have heard the Tibetan Mastiff excitedly declaring war on the Wolf King. But obviously, the Wolf King, who listened to Gu Shengyin, didn't care about it at all. Gu Shengyin looked at the struggling Tibetan Mastiff and suddenly said, "Can I touch it?" He Lu subconsciously said, "She has a bad personality and doesn't let others touch her easily." He was a little annoyed after saying that. If an ordinary person heard such words, they would think that he was rejecting her. Unexpectedly, Gu Shengyin smiled mysteriously. "Don't worry, I have a good relationship with animals." Wasn't it very good? Gu Shengyin didn't know how many times she had received this aura purification skill. Because of the purity of the aura, animals and plants liked it. She didn't have anything to say about such a skill. The system said, "What can I do?" This was all chosen by the host. Most importantly, this was an alien monster that the system had gotten for the host. If it were someone else, they wouldn't have gotten it. Of course, the system kept the rest to itself and did not tell Gu Shengyin. He Lu saw that she was really interested. He didn't know why, but he didn't want to reject her at all. If it was someone else, he would definitely not want to bother with them. But this girl's request, he only hesitated for a moment before saying, "You should greet the lion first. If it likes you, it will react." After saying this, even He Lu himself found it novel. He actually had the patience to instruct a stranger about such things. Gu Shengyin smiled and asked, "It's called a lion?" He Lu nodded. Gu Shengyin squatted down and waved at the lion lying on the ground. "Hello, lion." The lion looked at the human in front of it, opened its mouth and whimpered twice. Its claws also moved forward. Gu Shengyin laughed. "It seems to like me." He Lu felt that it was a little inconceivable. He knew the lion's temper best. It was extremely arrogant. Usually, even bathing and feeding it had to be done by itself. It wouldn't let the servants get close at all. It actually had a good impression of a stranger. 60 chapters. Begging for votes. Chapter 1563. He Lu became more curious about the girl who was squatting on the ground. When Gu Shengyin saw the lion's furry ears, she couldn't help but like it. She reached out and rubbed it. The lion, who had always been grumpy, was not angry. It still let her play with it. He Lu was very curious about all this. He looked at the Wolf King beside Gu Shengyin, who seemed a little unhappy about being ignored. He couldn't help but say, "I rarely see girls like lions, which are more fierce dogs." In fact, he only knew a few cousins who liked cute pets like golden-haired teddy bears. Gu Shengyin shook her head and said, "I didn't raise the Wolf King. I don't have time to take care of such a big one." She looked up and smiled at him. "Maybe it's fate. Not only dogs, but animals also like me." He Lu looked at her smile and his heart skipped a beat. But he looked at the time and said regretfully, "I have something to do, so I'll go home first." Gu Shengyin nodded and stood up. "Goodbye." She didn't ask for any contact information. He Lu liked such a straightforward attitude the most. This time, he didn't know why, but he felt a little upset. Maybe it was because he hadn't been treated so coldly by a woman for a long time. He Lu shook his head with a smile. There was a serious goodbye in his ear. "Goodbye, lion." The Tibetan Mastiff beside him heard the voice and turned around to smile at him. It seemed that it would abandon its master at any moment. He Lu turned around and saw the girl in white casual clothes opposite him waving at the Tibetan Mastiff with a smile, as if the lion could understand her. However, judging from the lion's reaction, it really seemed that it could understand her. He Lu turned around and left with the lion, who was still reluctant to part with him. Gu Shengyin continued to walk around with the Wolf King before returning home. Lu Qingshan was now idle at home. Every day, he played chess and planted flowers. Occasionally, he went out for a walk with his old friends. His life was very leisurely. Seeing Gu Shangyin coming back with the Wolf King, he couldn't bear to look at her. "Yuji, you're such a delicate little girl. It's so nice to buy a kitten or a rabbit to raise, but you're holding the Wolf King." Ever since Lu Qingshan was young, he had always wanted a well-behaved, quiet, and delicate daughter. However, when Lu Qinghe was born, he was busy with his career. By the time her career had stabilized, her daughter had already been spoiled by her family. Not to mention being delicate and lovable, Lu Qinghe could even use a fulcrum to move the earth. Later, when his daughter failed, he placed his hopes on his granddaughter. In the end, looking at the wolfhound that was even taller than his granddaughter when it stood up, Lu Qingshan thought that he could only place his hopes on his great-granddaughter. Gu Shengyin smiled. "I'm not raising it. I'm just going out for a walk with the Wolf King." "Right?" she asked casually. "I just met a man with a Tibetan Mastiff on the road. He looks quite handsome." "Grandpa, do you know who he is?" As soon as he heard the words Tibetan Mastiff, Lu Qingshan's first reaction was that his granddaughter was not injured, right? After Gu Shengyin confirmed that she was fine, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "There's only one person who can raise a Tibetan Mastiff here. He Lu, the third master of the He family." Gu Shengyin's eyes narrowed. Could it be that He family? If it was true, then it would be terrible. Lu Qingshan was very satisfied with his granddaughter's reaction. "It's that He family." Chapter 1564. There were many families with the surname He in Hua Nation. However, if one were to talk about the most famous He family, many people would know that the He family referred to the He family in the capital. The ancestors of the He family in the capital had followed Taizu to conquer the world and had made great achievements. Their descendants had also lived up to their name. The He family's main base was in the military. Coincidentally, there would be a genius in the military in every generation of the He family. No clan could guarantee that every generation of descendants would be outstanding, but for a clan like the He clan, as long as there were one or two outstanding descendants in every generation, with their foundation and connections, this clan would not fall. Moreover, there were more than one or two outstanding members in this generation of the He family. Apart from those with average talents, there were 3 masters in this generation of the He family. Although they were called masters, the oldest of the 3 was only in his 40s. The youngest, 3rd master, was not even old enough to stand up. First master, He Ji, was a figure that could be seen almost every day on Hua Nation TV. He was the youngest minister in the country and had a bright future in the political arena. He even had a chance to compete for the highest position. Second master, He Qi, was a famous figure in Hua Nation and even the world. He owned a Huaxia corporation and had branches all over Asia, Africa, and Europe. He was on the top of the Forbes rich list every year. Third master, He Lu. He was the youngest person in the military to hold the rank of Major General in Hua Nation. He had been promoted to Major General at the age of 27. He had not relied on his family's influence, but on his own abilities. He had earned it step by step. Anyone with a discerning eye knew that He Lu's future would not stop there based on his age and family background. Therefore, some people said that even if the most prominent family in Hua Nation was not the He family at the moment, it would definitely be the He family in the future. The first and second master of the He family were already married. Third master, He Lu, was the only one left. Countless families in the capital wanted to be on good terms with him. However, after so many years, no one had heard of He Lu being close to any family's daughter. Lu Qingshan was shocked when he heard He Lu's name. He had heard rumors that He Lu did not get close to women. Moreover, not only did he not get close to women, but he was also very cold in his dealings with others. The Lu family had lived here for so many years, and it was rare to see He Lu's smiling face. "Is Yuji all right?" Lu Qingshan couldn't help but ask again. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but laugh. How scary was He Lu in Grandpa's heart? She shook her head. "I'm fine. I didn't say anything to Third Master He. I just greeted the Tibetan Mastiff called Lion." Lu Qingshan knew that his granddaughter was close to animals. He looked at his granddaughter, who was smiling without a trace of nervousness. Although he knew in his heart that the other party wasn't a girl who coveted power, he still couldn't help but advise her, "That third master it's best if we don't get too close." Gu Shangyin seemed a little confused as to why he would say such a thing. Lu Qingshan said, "A family like ours, in the eyes of ordinary people, is considered a high and mighty rich family. But in front of a real rich family like the He family, it's still not enough. Grandpa is afraid that you will be taken advantage of." Gu Shangyin glanced at Lu Qingshan and suddenly smiled. "Grandpa, don't worry. I won't covet anything that doesn't belong to me." Chapter 1565. Hearing this, Lu Qingshan also relaxed. But she didn't know that Gu Shangyin still had half a sentence hidden in her heart. She naturally wouldn't think about someone who didn't belong to her. But what if that man was born to belong to her? Gu Shangyin shook her head. There were some things that others couldn't know. He Lu also returned home. This wasn't where he lived. This was a rare vacation, so his second brother, who had already married, invited his younger brother to stay for a while. As a successful businessman, He Chi was best at reading people's expressions. He glanced at He Lu and knew that his younger brother was in a good mood. "Did something good happen when you went out?" He Chi asked with a smile. He Lu's second sister-in-law came out with a bowl of fruit. Hearing this, she glanced at her younger brother-in-law's expressionless face. Sometimes, she really admired her husband. Her younger brother-in-law's calm face could tell whether he was happy or unhappy. But she didn't doubt He Chi's eyes. Sure enough, the next moment, He Lu nodded and said, "I just met an interesting person." Hearing this, He Chi became spirited. Interesting person. There weren't many people who could interest his younger brother. Man or woman? He Chi asked. Gu Shingyin's bright face flashed in front of He Lu's eyes. He said, "Woman." He Chi's eyes lit up. Speaking of which, the He family married late. His family wasn't particularly worried about He Lu not having a family, even though he was almost 30 years old. Especially with He Lu's conditions. As long as he opened his mouth, who knew how many young ladies in the capital would fight to enter the He family? But the key point was, after so many years, he had never seen He Lu treat anyone with a pleasant expression. Not to mention being interested, other than his family and friends from childhood, there wasn't even a girl who was slightly close to He Lu. He Chi even secretly thought that He Lu didn't like boys, right? But later, he didn't worry about this. Because not only were there no girls by He Lu's side, there were also no men. He Chi didn't have time to think about these things in the past, but in recent years, his career had been successful, his family was harmonious, and his wife had given him an adorable and invincible daughter. Second Master He, who felt that his life was complete, began to worry about his younger brother's lifelong affairs. After all, the old man at home was open-minded and felt that his children and grandchildren had their own blessings. As for her eldest brother, he was so engrossed in his career that he couldn't even take care of his own family matters. From this, He Chi developed a sense of responsibility as an elder brother who was like a father. He Lu was in the army and didn't have much time off. However, there were so many men in the He family and he had been close to He Chi since he was young. Every time she came back from her vacation, she would spend most of her time at her second brother's place, other than going to the old house to visit the old master. He Chi seized this opportunity and often took He Lu out in the name of meeting a few friends when he returned home. He Lu didn't want to embarrass his second brother, so he agreed every time. But every time, He Lu would be able to see a few young ladies of similar age and family background among those so-called friends. He Lu wasn't an idiot. How could he not understand when he saw this situation? So once, when the two brothers returned home from a party, he directly told He Chi that he had no interest in this kind of blind date. If He Chi was like this again, he wouldn't come again. He Chi naturally wouldn't distance himself from his younger brother because of this. He agreed on the surface, but his heart became more anxious. Chapter 1566. After confirming that his younger brother wasn't interested in men and women, He-Chi had a new worry. Could it be that this younger brother had something, that he couldn't say? Thinking of this possibility, He-Chi felt that his whole body was unwell. But he couldn't say this to He-Lu directly. He could discuss it with his wife, but He-Chi also felt that he was crazy to think of this. His wife would probably scold him. This time, he finally heard about girls from He-Lu's mouth. How could he not be excited? So he quickly asked, "Whose daughter is it? Do you know her? How old is she?" He-Lu glanced at He-Chi and said helplessly, "I just met her on the road and said a few words. How would I know whose family she is from?" In fact, Gu Xingyin's identity wasn't difficult to find out. This area was a famous rich area in the capital. Money wasn't enough. You had to have some connections to buy this area. With He-Chi's connections, he probably knew which building belonged to which family. What's more, it wasn't rare to see such a large wolfhound. But He-Lu didn't want to talk about this. He said that they met by chance, but He-Chi didn't think so. With He-Lu's perfect 1.8m figure and handsome face that could be compared to a big-screen superstar, even if they didn't know his identity, there were still many girls who came to talk to him. There were even some with hot personalities who directly hinted at him. But He-Chi had never heard anything about strange women from He-Lu's mouth. This time, he didn't just talk. He was obviously in a good mood. He even said that she was interesting. He-Chi, who was a playboy before marriage, said that a man's love for a woman often started from interest. Not to mention He-Lu, who was never interested in people. His eyes were burning. He wanted to know more about it, but He-Lu wasn't willing to cooperate. He also knew what He-Chi was thinking. In his heart, there was only helplessness. "I say, brother, I really don't have any interest in dating or marriage. Don't be so surprised." At this time, He-Lu didn't think that he would be slapped in the face so quickly. He-Chi saw that He-Lu didn't speak and understood his brother's character. If he didn't want to say it, no one could pry it out of his mouth. But even if He-Lu didn't say anything, it didn't mean that He-Chi didn't know. This time, it was rare for He-Lu to have a long vacation. The next day, he was called out to a gathering by his best friends who had grown up with him. He-Chi also found someone to find out who the girl he met at He-Lu was. So it's the granddaughter of the Lu clan and the daughter of the Zhong clan. Both families were well known in the capital. He-Chi knew Gu Xingyin's identity at a glance. This information was very detailed. It even found out that the Zhong family and the Zhong family had always intended to form a marriage alliance. Naturally, it also dug out the Zhong family's dirty secrets. However, He-Chi's focus was not on this. He looked at the information that showed that Zhong Yuji's boyfriend was Zhong Cheng. Just a few days ago, the two of them broke up. Just a few days ago, He-Lu told He-Chi that he would terminate his cooperation with the Zhong family. The cooperation between He-Chi and the Zhong family was just a small project. There were many competing companies, and all of them were about the same. He-Chi had chosen the Zhong family at random. Of course, he didn't mind this kind of thing. What he was more curious about was why He-Lu, who had never cared about these things, would suddenly say this. Chapter 1567. He-Chi had asked this question before, but how did He-Lu answer? It seemed like he just mentioned it casually, and He-Chi didn't care. But now, it was different. Looking at the information about Zhong Cheng's cheating sister, He-Chi immediately thought of his younger brother's anger for a woman. He looked and couldn't help but laugh. "You still said that you met by chance? Brat, I can't beat you in a fight, but in terms of love, 10 of you, He-Lu, can't compare to me." He looked carefully at Gu Xingyin's information again. Her family background is good, and her character is not stained. She is a good match for third brother. Gu Xingyin still didn't know that she had been labeled as a future sister-in-law in the He family's second master's heart. Her life in the Lu family was very comfortable. Even the air was much fresher without the extreme father and White Lotus. But she wasn't in a hurry, but Zhong Minggang was. It was a lie to say that he didn't have feelings for Zhong Yuji. After all, She was the daughter he doted on for more than 20 years. After a long time, he could even have feelings for an animal, let alone a human. Even though Gu Shengyin said that Zhong Minggang was a scumbag of a father, it couldn't be denied that Zhong Yuji received a lot of love from her father in the first 20 years of her life. But this kind of love was limited. When Zhong Minggang doted on Zhong Yuji, he took out the same amount of fatherly love, even more, to dote on an illegitimate daughter that was born outside. Zhong Minggang felt that his eldest daughter, Zhong Yuji, was born to be the high and mighty eldest daughter of the Zhong family. She had him, her mother, and her grandfather's family to dote on her. She didn't lack anything. But his youngest daughter, Anwan, was different. She needed more love from her father. It was fine if she didn't know about this kind of thing, but Gu Shengyin knew it clearly. Especially, Gu Shengyin, who had read the plot, knew that every time Zhong Minggang went on a business trip, he brought her those small gifts. They weren't unique. He didn't forget to give his sister the same gift every time. It wasn't just that. Zhong Minggang was an extremely selfish person. It could be seen from the fact that he chose Lu Qinghe for power and wealth even though he clearly had true love, but he couldn't let go of true love and let An Yen follow him for the rest of his life without any title or share. The person he loved the most was still himself. Just like now, he called Gu Shengyin several times in a row, not because he missed his daughter very much, but because he was worried that his daughter would be closer to the Lu family. Towards this powerful Yu clan, Zhong Minggang's heart had always been fearful and dissatisfied. The Lu family's way of doing things was too tough. He felt that he had been living under the shadow of the Lu family for many years. However, his daughter was very close to the Lu family. This was what Zhong Minggang was most worried about. His daughter Zhong Yuji held 30% of the shares of the Zhong family. Such a huge share, if Zhong Yuji turned against him, he would not be able to take advantage of it. If it was just his daughter alone, he wouldn't be worried at all. How could a young person who had just left school and didn't know anything about the business world have any ability? He was worried that the Lu family would interfere. Zhong Minggang always felt that the Lu family had always been coveting the Zhong group. If they used some underhanded means to take the shares from his daughter, and then used the Lu family's power to make things difficult for the Zhong family. Thinking about this possibility, Zhong Minggang felt a chill run down his spine. So he couldn't wait for Gu Shengyin to hurry home. Chapter 1568. Gu Shengyin really wanted to hang up the phone. She didn't want to listen to this man's fake sincerity at all. If it was the real Zhong Yuji, she might be soft-hearted because of this. But Gu Shengyin was different. She had seen too much of the fickleness of human nature. It was easy to tell if a person was sincere or not. Zhong Minggang was so nice to her. He obviously had other intentions. Her eldest aunt stopped her. She asked Gu Shengyin to say a few perfunctory words to appease Gu Shengyin. Then, her eldest aunt pulled her to sit down. Yuji, Zhong Minggang wants to take you back? Gu Shengyin nodded. Her eldest aunt smiled. Her eyes were gentle. Then you can go back. Gu Shengyin looked reluctant. I don't like to go home. Now when I see some people, I can't help but want to tear them apart. Her eldest aunt patted her hand and said seriously, if you don't like them, just drive them away. She looked at Gu Shengyin. Yuji, you have to remember that you are the daughter of the Zhong family. You are the miss of the Zhong family. That is your home. You are the miss of the Zhong family. You are living outside and letting an illegitimate daughter and a mistress take over your home. What is this? For some things, as time passes, even the false will become the real thing. The An family has been living in the Zhong family for a long time. Those who don't know the truth will think that they are the real madam and miss of the Zhong family. Gu Shengyin's heart skipped a beat. She looked at her eldest aunt. But aren't we going to? What she wanted to say was, didn't they already say that they were going to take over the Zhong group? Her eldest aunt glared at her. So what if you take over the Zhong group? Can you not recognize Zhong Minggang as your father? Can you not let him live in the Zhong family's house? And when that time comes, you will fall out with him. He will only protect the mother and daughter even more and let them continue to live in the house that you and your mother used to live in. Are you willing? Gu Shengyin was suddenly enlightened. She nodded at first. Aunt. Then I'll talk to my dad later and ask him to drive the family's mother and daughter out. Gu Shengyin said. Eldest aunt shook her head. It's not appropriate for you to say that. Let us do it. Gu Shengyin was surprised. First aunt. Actually, how could she not know that these words were more appropriate to be said by her maternal grandparents? It was just that this kind of thing was definitely a thankless task to offend someone. The Lu family treated her very well, so how could she have the nerve to ask? She shook her head. This matter is too troublesome. It's better if I do it myself. Eldest aunt interrupted her. You're being so estranged. Are you not going to treat us as family? In my opinion, there's no need to offend anyone. Ever since that bastard Zhongming Gang did such a wicked thing, our Lu family no longer has any friendship with him, only hatred. Since we're already enemies, there's no need to talk about offending them. As for the family's mother and daughter, eldest aunt's face was full of disdain. Our Lu family, do you think we're afraid of these two trash who live by seducing men? Eldest aunt was also a swift and decisive person. If she said she would do it, she would do it. She immediately called Zhongming Gang. The meaning behind her words was very obvious. You want Yuji to go back? Fine. Chase that restless mother and daughter out. Zhongming Gang was immediately furious. The Lu family was really too arrogant. Lu Qinghe was already dead, but they still wanted to interfere in his private affairs. He asked Gu Shengyin to answer the phone, but his daughter's phone was always busy, and the Lu family did not relent. This kind of situation made Zhongming Gang even more certain of his guess. The Lu family must have a conspiracy to detain Yuji. Chapter 1569. He didn't even think that the Lu family kept their daughter because they liked Gu Shengyin. He even thought that the Lu family was using this opportunity to put their daughter under house arrest. As for what they wanted to do after putting their daughter under house arrest, the more he thought about it, the more Zhongming Gang felt that his guess was right. The Lu family was definitely ambitious. But to chase An and her daughter out, Zhongming Gang couldn't bear to do that. Not bearing to do that was only one aspect. More importantly, it was about a man's pride. What right did the Lu family have to order him around? Gu Shengyin listened from the side. It seemed that Zhongming Gang wasn't willing to compromise. Eldest aunt's expression was getting worse. Gu Shengyin's eldest aunt really didn't understand Zhongming Gang. She was just a mistress. Was she more important than her own daughter? Even though she knew that Zhongming Gang was a scumbag, eldest aunt still felt her heart ache when she really met him. At this moment, she saw Gu Shengyin secretly mouthing, "Let him do a paternity test with an one." Eldest aunt narrowed her eyes. Although she didn't know what Gu Shengyin meant, she immediately changed her words. "It's fine if you don't chase them out for now. Take that cheap daughter of yours to do a paternity test. Bring the results to the Lu family." After saying this, eldest aunt didn't seem to want to hear Zhongming Gang's voice anymore. She hung up the phone with a bang. She asked Gu Shengyin, "Why did you suddenly think of this?" After all, she was someone who had experienced many things. After she asked, eldest aunt reacted. "That Wen is your father's daughter?" She thought about that daughter's age and compared it to Zhongming Gang. Her face darkened even more. If it was true, then Zhongming Gang was really a scumbag. Gu Shengyin knew that Wen wasn't, but she couldn't say this to eldest aunt. So she just shook her head and said that she didn't know either. But looking at her father's attitude towards Wen, she felt that he treated her better than he did her. It was as if he was compensating her. That was all he needed to say. Sure enough, eldest aunt was so angry that she wanted to discuss it with her father-in-law and husband, but Gu Shengyin stopped her. "There's still no news about it. Why don't we wait for my dad to come back with the results?" Eldest aunt thought about it and agreed. She patted Gu Shengyin's hand and said, "Yuji is so thoughtful. Eldest aunt is so angry." At the other side. Just as Chongming thought about the Lu family's words, he fell into deep thought. Could it be that the Lu family was suspicious of Wen's identity when they said they wanted to do a paternity test? No way. She couldn't let them know that Wen was her child. If that was the case, she would be the one in the wrong if she had already had an affair when she first got married. But if he didn't take it out, he would seem guilty. Halcyon thought for a moment, then called an old friend of his. A paternity test wasn't completely real, was it? Chongming Gang didn't tell Yen and his daughter about this, afraid that they would think too much. The next day, when he went to work, he took a few strands of Wen's hair and went to his old friend's place. Help me do a paternity test. I might have to trouble you to help me change it. Okay. After Chongming Gang sent the thing over, his heart calmed down. As long as he took this to the Lu family, no matter how suspicious the Lu family was, they wouldn't say anything, right? Chapter 1570. Gu Shengyin naturally paid attention to Chong Minggong's actions. Of course, Wen's actions were also under her control. She saw Chong Minggang calling an old acquaintance and making an appointment with him to help her fake it. When she saw this, she almost laughed out loud. She didn't know how interesting her scumbag father's expression would be at that time. As for Wen, her life was very carefree. Her life wasn't bad before. After all, Chong Minggang would give Yen a sum of money regularly. It was more than enough to support the mother and daughter. But there was still a big difference between living a good life and being rich. At least in Wen's opinion, compared to now, the life she lived before wasn't called living, but survival. Now, she could go to all the big brands and swipe her card. She didn't even need to look at the price. If it was before, she had to save money to buy a 4-figure dress. And Yen wasn't as happy as her daughter. She even often advised her daughter, "You should restrain yourself. Now, nothing is settled. The Chong family only has Chong Yuji. We have to leave a good impression in front of your father." And Wen didn't care about this at all. In her heart, now that Chong Yuji was forced out of the Chong family by them, they were the mistresses of the Chong family. What else did they have to worry about? But she didn't know if Yan's worry was really unnecessary. Chong Minggang was originally a little dissatisfied with this daughter because of the one-night stand in the bar. And during this period, Wen's crazy shopping behavior made him a little dissatisfied. It wasn't that he was in the mood for the money that was spent. He could still afford such expenses. He just felt that Wen's behavior was like a nouveau riche. She didn't have the temperament of a rich girl at all. After all, she was raised by Yen, a woman who didn't know much. Whether it was vision or temperament, she wasn't very good. There was a gap only when there was a comparison. Thinking about it this way, although Yuji was spoiled and had a bad temper, at least she wouldn't be embarrassed when brought out. Chong Minggang had a rare trace of satisfaction with Chong Yuji. Because he got in through the back door, the test results came out quickly. He was in a meeting when he received the call from his old friend. Because he didn't take it seriously, he casually said that he would come back at night and treat him to dinner. After work, Chongming drove to his old friend's private hospital. In the end, when the other party handed over the report, he casually glanced at it and smiled. "You know me well, kid. I didn't even tell you how to change it, and you changed it for me." The results of this report clearly showed that there was no parent-child relationship between the two. Chong Minggang was still thinking that his old friend was really good at saving him a lot of time. He had to give him a big red packet later. Hearing this, his old friend was stunned. "I haven't changed it for you yet. You didn't tell me how to deal with it, so I don't dare to change the test results without your permission." After he said this, he didn't hear any response from his old friend. Thinking carefully, he suddenly realized the meaning behind his words. If he remembered correctly, one of the parties involved in the paternity test was his old friend himself. The doctor, who had seen a lot of feuds between rich and powerful families, immediately thought of a possibility. He raised his head to look at Chong Minggang. As expected, at this moment, Chong Minggang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Chapter 1571. Chong Gang's hand gripped the report tightly, almost twisting the thin piece of paper out of shape. His voice sounded like it was coming out of his mouth, word by word. "You're saying that you haven't made any changes to this report?" The doctor looked at him and knew what was going on. He felt a bit of sympathy for his old friend, but he still said what needed to be said. "Yes, this is the correct result." All that was left in Chong Gang's mind was anger. He raised his head and looked at his old friend. "I'm sorry, old Yang. I probably won't be able to eat with you tonight. Another day, I'll definitely come and apologize." The doctor, old Yang, knew that his old friend must be feeling terrible. He nodded and said, "We're close friends. Go and do your own things." Chong Gang wasn't in the mood to talk to him. He stepped on the accelerator and rushed home. Dinner was already prepared at home. And Yen and An were waiting for Chong Gang to come back to eat. Chong Gang returned home angrily. He didn't forget to ask all the servants to leave. The servants at home were all old. They knew that something big had happened. They just needed to work hard and get paid. Of course, they had to stay as far away from this kind of thing as possible. After everyone left, Chong Gang walked into the dining room. And Yen also felt that the atmosphere was a bit off. And Wan, on the other hand, unconsciously acted coquettishly towards Chong Gang. "Dad, you're finally back. I'm starving. I've been waiting for you to come back to eat." When he brought the family's mother and daughter in, Chong Gang said that he would treat Wan as his own daughter in the future. He wanted Wan to call him Dad. This was originally a polite sentence, but Wan took it seriously. From that day on, she kept calling him Dad. She even called him Yuji, her biological daughter. This was actually a bit inappropriate, but Chong Gang thought that since she was his daughter, it didn't matter if she called him that. However, Wen's call of Dad sounded like mockery to Chong Gang's ears. He, Chong Gang, had been smart all his life. He was actually played like this. "Shut up. Who's your dad? I'm not your dad." Chong Gang, who hadn't cursed in many years, couldn't help but curse. And Wan was dumbfounded by this scolding. Chong Gang had always felt that he owed her. After such a long time, he hadn't even said a single harsh word to her. Even if he was dissatisfied with what had happened at the bar last time, he had only kept it in his heart. When had he ever spoken so harshly to her? The more Wan thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. Her eyes turned red and tears fell. And Yen felt her heart ache as she watched from the side. She had been protecting her daughter all these years. Her only daughter was her lifeblood. She treasured her a lot. How could she not feel heartache when she saw her like this? Immediately, her eyes turned red as well. And Yen wiped her tears and looked at Chong Gang with a pale face. "I know you might not be happy outside, but you can't take it out on a child. I know that I'm useless. I'm just an unpresentable mistress. I'm not your legitimate wife, and I can't help you much in your career. So, if you're unhappy, take it out on me. Don't take it out on Wan Gang." And Yen had always been the most familiar with this tactic of retreating to advance and softening her attacks. She also knew that Chong Gang liked this tactic the most. Chapter 1572. If it was any other time, Chong Gang would not be able to hold on for more than a few minutes, then he would walk up and comfort her. But this time he did not. And Yen cried for a while. Seeing that Chong Gang did not react at all, she looked up at him in confusion. Chong Gang was looking at her with a face full of mockery and even hatred. Seeing this woman act so well, Chong Gang felt that he was the stupidest idiot in the world in the past. If he wasn't stupid, how could he be a cuckold and be a father for more than 20 years? He looked at An Yen in front of him. This woman, for so many years, had relied on this look to force herself to put on an act in front of him, to gain his pity. And he himself actually believed it. Probably because his expression was too scary, An Yen felt a trace of uneasiness. She even forgot to cry and whispered, "Chong Gang, what's wrong with you today?" "What's wrong?" Chong Ming Gang laughed coldly, and threw the thing in his hand towards An Yen on the same day. An Yen panicked. She slowly stood up and picked up the thing on the ground. At first glance, she saw the words, paternity test, and her heart felt empty. She continued to read. When she saw the words, not related by blood, at the end, she felt all the energy in her body being sucked out. No wonder Chong Ming Gang had such a reaction. She forced herself to hold on to the dining table to prevent herself from falling. She looked at Chong Ming Gang and wondered how she could find an excuse to cover up this matter. She slowly pursed her lips. Chong Ming Gang, this can't be true. Wan is definitely your child. It's true. There must be a problem with the results. Meeting Chong Ming Gang's mocking eyes, she took back the words that she did not believe. Chong Ming Gang sneered. Go on. I just want to know, in front of this truth, what can you do? Make excuses for yourself? And one was already stunned by this unexpected development. What did father mean just now? She was not the daughter of the Chong family? How was that possible? Didn't mother tell her that she was the daughter of the Chong family? How could she not be the daughter of the Chong family? And one looked at her mother with hopeful eyes. No matter when, his mother would always be able to solve everything perfectly. This time, it would definitely be the same, right? Meeting her daughter's gaze, An Yen closed her eyes. Ming Gang, you'd rather believe this cold test result than believe in our years of relationship, right? Feelings? Zhong Ming Gang sneered. Until Lu Qinghe died, she still thought that he was deeply in love with her. How could he possibly believe in love? He looked at An Yen. I really didn't expect you to be such a powerful woman, An Yen. I, Zhong Ming Gang, have never suffered such a huge setback in anyone's hands in my entire life. Hello, you're simply wonderful. Zhong Ming Gang was furious. He pointed in the direction of the door. Now, immediately, get out of the Zhong family. Remember, don't try to take away anything that belongs to the Zhong family. Chong Ming Gang felt as if there was a layer of blood in front of his eyes. He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. This slut. B*TCH. 70 chapters. Please reward me. Chapter 1573. And one felt that all of this was wrong. How could she not be the daughter of the Chong family? She was clearly Chong Minggong's daughter. She kept looking at An Yen, hoping that in the next moment, An Yen would be able to produce strong evidence to prove that the report was wrong. However, An Yen remained silent. Even she felt guilty. She could not find a strong enough reason to refute this paternity test. Chong Minggang saw that the two of them were not moving and said eerily, "Do you want me to get someone to chase you out?" An Yen, since we've known each other for more than 20 years, this is the last bit of face I'm giving you. In 10 minutes, if I see you still here, I'll get someone to throw your things and your people out. An Yen looked at Chong Minggang. Her voice was filled with a sadness that shocked even herself. Are you really that heartless? Chong Minggong's expression was cold. At this time, this woman still had the face? She still had the face to say that he was heartless? He did not want to communicate with this woman any longer. I said, get lost. At this moment, Anwen suddenly pounced forward and hugged Chong Minggong's arm. Father, I don't believe it. This can't be true. I'm your daughter. How can I not be your daughter? Father, you can't just ignore the father-daughter relationship we've had for so many years just because of some untrue things. At this moment, Anwen's mind was blank. She only knew that she could not be chased out by Chong Minggang. If she was chased out, she would have to return to her previous life without any jewelry or branded goods. She had had enough of that life. She wanted to be a rich young lady. She wanted to be a superior person. Father loved her so much. He definitely wouldn't chase her out, right? However, she thought too much. Chong Minggong's kindness to her was all based on the fact that Anwen was his biological daughter. Now, he knew that it was all a joke. And he was the one who was being played like a monkey in the joke. How could he still have fatherly love for An? He even felt disgusted when he thought about how An was someone else's child, but he had raised her like a treasure for more than 20 years. An was pushed away by a strong force. She lost her balance and her head hit the edge of the table. So painful. For a moment, she couldn't even see clearly. An was shocked and hurriedly ran over to support her daughter. Looking at Chong Ming-gang's cold and mocking eyes, An finally realized that this man really hated the mother and daughter pair to the core. Chong Ming-gang coldly said, 7 minutes left. Anyan's heart trembled. She knew that Chong Ming-gang was a man of his word. If he was really chased out later, that would be really embarrassing. She said to An, Mom will go pack up and come find you soon. Pack up? Chong Ming-gang sneered. Remember my words. Don't try to take away anything that belongs to the Chong Ming family. None of you are worthy. An stopped in her tracks. Why didn't they take away what belonged to the Zhong family? All these years, she had never gone out to look for a job. She had always relied on Zhong Minggong's money to support her. How could she have anything that truly belonged to her? Was this man trying to force them to their deaths? Chapter 1574. She couldn't help but turn around and beg, Minggang. Zhou Minggang raised his hand and looked at his watch. There are still 5 minutes. Don't call me Minggang, I feel like you're dirtying my name. After being humiliated again and again, even An couldn't take it anymore. She screamed, Okay, Zhou Minggang, since you're so heartless, I won't say anything more. She bent down and helped An up, and the two of them walked out of the door with difficulty. Zhou Minggang looked coldly at the backs of the mother and daughter, and pressed the service bell in the house. The nannies and servants who had been hiding earlier all appeared in the dining room. Zhou Minggang ordered coldly, Clean this place up, and burn everything in the room where the mother and daughter are staying. The mother and daughter? The servants looked at each other and understood that he was referring to the An family. Master was finally tired of them? Although they didn't understand what had happened here, everyone was happy to see such an outcome. Nanny Li was the most experienced here, and she stood up and asked, Those expensive jewels? Zhou Minggang's eyes flashed with disgust. Burn them all. Yes. Everyone understood his attitude now. It seemed that Sir really hated that pair of mother and daughter to the core. Teska they didn't know what they had done to anger the heavens and the people. Nanny Li asked again, Then Master, when will eldest miss come back? Hearing his eldest daughter's name, Zhou Minggang's eyes finally warmed up. Tomorrow, I will personally go to the Lu family to pick Yuji up. A smile appeared on Nanny Li's face when she heard this. All right, then I'll go and clean Mrs. Room again. Once everyone had left, Halcyon finally let out a sigh of relief. He sat on a chair in the dining room and rubbed his forehead tiredly. Recently, because of the period in the company, he had been running around, and after this incident, he deeply felt that his body couldn't take it anymore. After this period of time, when he had time, he had to go to the hospital to have a checkup. Lu family. Gu Shengyin was sitting on the sofa and eating fruits. She was smiling as she listened to the system's live broadcast of what happened in the Zhong family. She knew that this pair of mother and daughter from the An family didn't need anyone to deal with them at all. They could dig their own graves. Eldest aunt walked over and saw the smile on her face. What are you looking at? You look so happy. Gu Shengyin replied casually, I'm watching a show. When first aunt heard this, she glanced at the TV that was playing a show about the battle between rich mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. She was deeply worried about her niece's taste. Why would such a young girl like to watch such things? Gu Shengyin still didn't know that her taste was being despised. She thought for a moment and said, My father will probably come tomorrow. Hearing her mention Chong Minggang, eldest aunt immediately threw the matter of watching the show to the back of her mind, and the smile on her face disappeared. Sure. However, it won't be easy to bring you back from the Lu family. The next day, Chong Minggang didn't even go to the company. Early in the morning, he brought a car full of gifts to the Lu family. His attitude was unexpectedly sincere. Lu Qingshan looked at him and snorted, "Ever since Qing he left, I haven't seen President Cheng come to our house. This time, you finally remembered our house?" Chapter 1575. Chongming Gang was feeling guilty, so he didn't react when he heard this. Instead, he smiled. This reaction surprised the Lu family members. Chongming Gang asked the servants to carry all the gifts in. He smiled apologetically, "Father-in-law, I know that I did something shameful some time ago. Now I know that I was wrong." He said sincerely, "I won't beat around the bush. I came here today to take Yuji back. After all, Yuji is the daughter of the Zhong family. Although I know that you kept her here because you like her, others might not think so, right? Those who don't know would think that Yuji is not favored in the Zhong family." His words were beautiful and pleasant, and Lu Qingshan's expression became slightly better. However, he still snorted coldly, "Take Yuji home? Don't you have a gentle mistress and a gentle and well-behaved daughter in your family? Those who don't know would think that she is your biological daughter." The words biological daughter were like a thorn that stabbed into Chongming Gang's heart. His disgust for Madame Anne and her daughter increased by several degrees. He still looked guilty. "I was muddle-headed. I'm already so old, and I still did something so embarrassing. Yesterday, I already chased that mother and daughter out. I swear that such a thing will never happen again." Chased out? The Lu family didn't expect this. In addition, Chongming Gang took out the paternity test. "This is the paternity test I did a few days ago. I didn't do anything to hurt Qing He before marriage." Seeing this, Lu Qingshan's expression relaxed slightly. He nodded at Chongming Gang, and his tone softened a lot. "You are thoughtful." Gu Shengyin sneered at the side. She thought that Chongming Gang was a flexible person. Last night, he was so angry because of this thing. This was the proof of his humiliation. However, today, he could use it as a reason to show his loyalty to the Yu family. It was no wonder that such a tolerant person could be successful in the business world. At this time, Lu Qingshan looked at Gu Shengyin. "Yuji is also an adult. She has her own ideas. Why don't you ask her if she's willing to go back to the Zhong family with you?" Hearing this, Chongming Gang looked at Gu Shengyin. As long as the Yu clan did not obstruct them, he still had a high chance of persuading his daughter. Just as he thought, Gu Shengyin did not even resist and agreed to go home with him. Chongming Gang finally relaxed. He felt that he had finally convinced the Yu clan. However, he didn't know that this was the Yu clan's original intention. On the way home, Gu Shengyin sat in the front passenger seat and deliberately provoked Chongming Gang. "Dad, did you really send those two people away?" The last thing Chongming Gang wanted was for someone to mention the family's mother and daughter. However, he urgently needed to ease his relationship with his daughter. At this moment, he could only try his best to suppress the disgust in his heart. "Father has chased them out. Don't worry, Yuji, no one will make you unhappy anymore." Gu Shengyin smiled and nodded. Chongming Gang only thought that she was happy. He didn't know that Gu Shengyin was thinking, "No one will make me unhappy, but soon, there will be many things that will make you unhappy." Chapter 1576. Chongming Gang patiently tried to ease their relationship for a few days. On the third day, he finally couldn't take it anymore. That day, when they were having dinner, he couldn't help but ask, "Yuji, the Chong Group has a big project plan in the next 2 days. All the major shareholders need to vote together. Do you have time to go to the company?" He was really afraid that his daughter would say, "Just let uncle go." Fortunately, she didn't. Gu Shengyin just nodded casually. "No problem." Chongming let out a sigh of relief. He seemed to be advising and warning his daughter at the same time. "Yuji, the 30% shares in your hands are very important. You can't sell it to anyone. Do you understand? If anyone wants to buy it, you have to tell me." It finally came. Gu Shengyin put down the bowl in her hand and wiped her mouth with a wet tissue. Dad, don't worry. I know what's important and what's not. Chongming Gang nodded with relief and said casually, if you think it's troublesome, I can manage it for you. It's not a problem. Gu Shengyin rolled her eyes in her heart. She thought that Chongming Gang would at least say something in exchange, but from his tone, it seemed like he wanted to take her shares for free without offering anything. And under the name of managing it for her? Did he think Chongming Yuji was a fool? She immediately smiled. It's not troublesome. Anyway, I'm just a leisurely shareholder. I just get dividends and do nothing, right? Seeing that she didn't answer, Chongming Gang wasn't thick-skinned enough to continue asking. This conversation was left unsettled. Gu Shengyin felt that she should check the calendar before going out today. At noon, she was disgusted by Chongming Gang. Not long after she went out, she met Zhong Cheng on the road. This person was holding a bouquet of delicate red roses in his hand and directly blocked her on the road. Yuji, I love you. After such a long time, your anger should have subsided. Can you forgive me? Zhong Cheng's face was full of affection. He directly confessed to Gu Shengyin on the streets. This guy looked like a dog, drove a luxury car worth millions, and was even holding a bouquet of red roses in his hand. It was obvious that he was about to stir up trouble, and he quickly attracted the attention of most of the passers-by. Especially when some passers-by recognized that this tall, rich, and handsome man was the young master of the Zhong family. As soon as these words came out, the passers-by who didn't know were even more enlightened. Oh, he really is a tall, rich, and handsome man. Such a scene was probably one of the most romantic scenes in the hearts of most little girls who were filled with fantasies. However, as one of the parties involved, Gu Shengyin said that she only had one word in her heart, Mother****, but she didn't know if she should say it. If she had Zhong Cheng in her heart, then so be it. At most, it would be a high-profile public display of affection. It was nothing. However, the problem was that this man had been caught cheating on her not long ago. She had already made it clear that the two of them were finished. How could he be so shameless as to do such a thing? Gu Shengyin was sick of it. There were already many spectators gathered by the side, and some people had already started to jeer for Gu Shengyin to agree. These people didn't even know what was going on. They were only there to watch the show. Zhong Cheng had deliberately chosen this kind of place. He was also a little scheming. Most girls were thin-skinned. Under such circumstances, with the crowd jeering, it was easy for them to agree. Chapter 1577. However, Gu Shengyin was not an ordinary young girl. She was not willing to give Zhong Cheng face. She looked at Zhong Cheng coldly. I thought we had made it very clear. Zhong Cheng, it's over between you and me. Zhong Cheng did not take this sentence to heart. He still looked at Gu Shengyin affectionately. I know that you are angry with me. I have been regretting it all this time. I really know that I was wrong. Please give me another chance. Yuji, give me another chance. Let's get married right away, okay? As he said this, he actually took out an exquisite box from his pocket. He changed from repentance to a proposal. This scene made the eyes of the passers-by turn red. Originally, Zhong Cheng's appearance was the kind that could easily arouse people's good feelings. In addition, he was the son of a rich family. Many passers-by felt that it was really rare for such a tall, rich, and handsome man to do this for a girl. There were young people in the crowd shouting, "Say yes! Marry him!" and so on. When He Lu drove past here, he was attracted by this place. He had never cared about this kind of bustle. However, when he passed by, an auntie who was watching the show in the innermost part seemed to have something to do. She answered the phone and struggled to squeeze out a gap in the crowd. Just at this moment, He Lu saw Gu Shengyin in the middle of the crowd clearly. It seemed that she was the heroine of the bustle. The crowd squeezed forward again. He Lu frowned. After a few seconds of silence, he decisively found an empty spot. After parking the car, he walked toward the crowd. In the crowd, Gu Shengyin listened to the jeering of the people around and did not panic at all. She raised her head and coldly swept her gaze across her surroundings. This gaze was so imposing that many people subconsciously shut their mouths. And the passers-by around saw her appearance so carefully for the first time. What a beautiful girl! No wonder Zhong Cheng, such a rich man, liked her so much. Gu Shengyin glanced at the expensive diamond ring in Zhong Cheng's hand and said coldly, "Keep your things. Zhong Cheng, when you cheated on me, I made it clear that we were finished. I don't believe you, and I'm not interested. Don't insult me with marriage. If I marry someone like you, I'll feel disgusted for the rest of my life." Cheating. The passers-by finally understood why this girl had not relented. He actually had such a criminal record. Many of the passers-by who were clamoring for Gu Shengyin to agree shut their mouths. Of course, there were also some people who felt that, as a man, how could there be a time when he did not cheat? It was already good enough that he could admit his mistakes and change. Zhong Cheng seemed to be able to sense that there were many unreadable gazes around him. He did not expect that Gu Shengyin would not give him any face and expose his shortcomings in public. Looking at this, she really had no intention of reconciling with him. He gritted his teeth and looked at Gu Shengyin. "We really don't have any chance?" Gu Shengyin was silent. Her attitude could not be more obvious. The crowd did not know where the laughter and boos came from, as if they were laughing at Zhong Cheng. Zhong Cheng's face turned red, and he looked at Gu Shengyin with hatred. "Chonggyuji, I've humbled myself and begged for your forgiveness today, but you didn't even bother to acknowledge me. One day, you will regret it." Chapter 1578. Gu Shengyin said lightly, "What will happen to me in the future, you don't have to worry about it." Zhong Cheng glanced at the delicate red rose in his hand. He had carefully prepared it for today, but looking at it now, it seemed that there was no need for it. He threw the bouquet on the ground. "Zhong Yuji, you will find that you can't find a man who loves you more than me. A woman like you doesn't have a heart. Even when you were with me, you didn't love me." That was a little too much. Gu Shengyin didn't expect that Zhong Cheng would be so ungentlemanly after being angry. She frowned. "Zhong Cheng, you are the one who cheated on me first. Don't say that you love me after doing such a thing. This kind of love, Heavy Rain Ji, cannot afford. I have never done anything wrong to you. We can part on good terms. At most, we won't be friends in the future. Do you want to be my enemy? A woman like me doesn't have a heart. It's none of your business. Whoever I fall in love with has nothing to do with you." Gu Shengyin felt that he must have been out of his mind to try to reason with such a narcissistic idiot. She turned around and looked at the passers-by around her. She didn't even want to maintain the smile on her face. "Excuse me, let me pass, okay?" She didn't know that her right arm was pulled by someone as soon as she left. Gu Shengyin turned her head. Zhong Cheng's red eyes appeared in front of her. Gu Shengyin frowned. He doesn't look right? But she didn't have the mood to study this. She tried to shake him off but failed. She said coldly, "Let go of me." Zhong Cheng just stared at her as if he didn't hear it. "What do you mean by what you just said? Whoever you fall in love with has nothing to do with me." "Who do you fall in love with? Do you have someone else in your heart, so you want to break up with me?" Gu Shengyin's mood at the moment was like 10,000 curses running through her heart. She barely managed to maintain her composure and didn't swear in public, but her expression had truly turned cold. "Zhong Cheng, you're the one who cheated on me when we were dating. You need to be clear about one thing. You are the one who wronged me, not the other way around. This planet doesn't revolve around you. Why are you still thinking about such meaningless things at this time? Are you sick?" She didn't expect that her words would trigger an invisible switch, and Zhong Cheng's eyes instantly went wild. Gu Shengyin could only feel the pain in his arm. Zhong Cheng muttered to himself, "Sick? Ha 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 ha, I am sick. You woman, I love you so much, but you won't forgive me. You woman." Gu Shengyin's heart skipped a beat. Zhong Cheng's behavior was clearly abnormal. Could it be that he really had some sort of mental illness? The passers-by who were closer to the scene probably noticed that something was wrong. Gu Shengyin shouted to the people next to her, "He's not normal. Come and help me pull him away." Several young men heard the words and came over. Zhongcheng suddenly pulled Gu Shengyin's body and threw her to the ground. "Indifferent woman, go to hell." Gu Shengyin felt the strength and could only try to hold her head with both hands. It would probably hurt a lot. But the expected pain didn't come. Chapter 1579. Gu Shengyin only felt something pulling her arm, and then due to inertia, her whole body fell into a cool embrace. The familiar fragrance of the lotus instantly enveloped her, making her feel at ease. Gu Shengyin opened her eyes and met He Lu's eyes with a trace of concern. "Are you okay?" she asked in a low voice. Gu Shengyin shook her head. "Thank you for arriving in time." He Lu let go of her, and Gu Shengyin turned to look at Zhongcheng, who was standing on the side. Zhongcheng's expression was still a little crazy at the moment, and several young and strong men had already approached him. As long as he did anything wrong, they would subdue him. Zhongcheng looked at He Lu strangely. He felt that this person was a little familiar, but at this time, it was obvious that his thinking ability was somewhat insufficient. He stretched out his hand and pointed at He Lu, his voice full of resentment. "Who is this man? Is he your new lover? Is it because of him that you want to break up with me? I knew it. You women are all fickle." As soon as these words came out, not only did Gu Shengyin feel irritated, but the people around couldn't stand it anymore. After watching the scene for a long time, they roughly knew what had happened. This tall, rich, and handsome man cheated on his girlfriend when the two were dating, and his girlfriend broke up with him angrily. As a result, after the breakup, he realized that his girlfriend was his true love, and carefully prepared a gift and a proposal to get back together. This kind of trick was not unfamiliar, and it was normal for his girlfriend to be unwilling to forgive him. After all, there was a first time for everything, and no one could say for sure who the great young Master Zhong would like next time. Originally, it was fine to part on good terms, but with Zhongcheng's conditions, how could he worry about no beauties coming to him? This matter was originally Zhongcheng's unsightly behavior, and later he even wanted to use violence, which was even more low class. Anyone who saw this would feel that Zhongcheng was pestering her and was unwilling to let her go. Especially now, Zhongcheng directly scolded her in anger, and he didn't just scold one person, but all the women. At this time, even the women who had felt pity for him when they saw his sad appearance felt that he deserved it. This was the best time to see a person's true thoughts. If this was how young Master Zhong viewed women, then what he said about his deep love for his girlfriend was most likely an exaggeration. Gu Shengyin looked at Zhongcheng coldly. At this moment, she was sure that there was something wrong with Zhongcheng's brain. She knew that Zhongcheng was a smart person. Under normal circumstances, he would never say such words that would put himself in a disadvantageous position. And from Zhongcheng's appearance, it was very obvious that he had been provoked and suddenly had a relapse. Gu Shengyin did not know what illness he had, but she knew that it was best to calm him down as soon as possible and not continue to be agitated. However, who was Zhongcheng? Why should she, Gu Shengyin, empathize with him? If it was an innocent person, Gu Shengyin wouldn't have minded lending a helping hand. But, if it was Zhongcheng, the more he could not be provoked, the more Gu Shengyin wanted to provoke him. She glanced sideways at He Lu and suddenly said, "Please do me a favor." He Lu heard this and lowered his head to look at her. "How?" Gu Shengyin smiled. "Later, just don't expose me." Chapter 1580. He Lu didn't quite understand what she meant, but he still nodded, indicating that there was no problem. Gu Shengyin looked up and smiled at him, then looked at Zhongcheng. She smiled very comfortably, as if she wasn't affected by Zhongcheng's appearance at all. "You're right. This person is my new boyfriend. We have a good relationship and are going to get married soon. But I want to defend myself. I only met him after I broke up with you." Her tone was light and slow, as if she was telling a story. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for cheating. Zhong Cheng, thank you for letting me break up with you. After leaving you, I realized that there are so many good men in this world waiting for me, so that I don't have to hang myself on a crooked tree like you. Some people around couldn't help but laugh. This girl's move was beautiful. She didn't make a scene like a crazy person. Instead, she used another way to ruthlessly repay this man for cheating. I left you, so I found a better man. Thank you for cheating. There was nothing more ironic than this. Who hadn't met a few scumbags when they were young? The best way to deal with such a person was to kick him away and find a better one. It was also the best revenge for a scumbag. If you don't cherish me, someone will. Zhong Cheng's eyes turned even redder because of this sentence. His whole body trembled, as if he was trying his best to suppress something. Gu Shengyin saw him like this, took out her phone and pressed 110 without hesitation. This man looked very abnormal. He had a violent tendency to hurt people just now. Gu Shengyin said that as a good citizen, it was naturally better to leave this kind of thing to the police. When Zhong Cheng saw her actions, he suddenly lost control. He rushed directly towards Gu Shengyin and shouted, "Damn woman, I'm going to kill you." The few people beside him hurriedly stopped him, but Zhong Cheng, who was crazy, was very strong. He broke free from the restraints of the three men and approached Gu Shengyin directly. Gu Shengyin's eyes turned cold. Just as she was about to react, He Lu's voice came from the side. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." He took a step forward and stood in front of Gu Shengyin. Everyone then saw that Zhong Cheng, whom even 3 adult men couldn't stop, was directly punched to the ground by this handsome and cold man. He couldn't get up for a long time. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but smile. How could she forget that He Lu was a major general in the military? With him here, Zhong Cheng really couldn't stir up much trouble. Vaguely, she could hear the girls in the crowd whispering, "He's so handsome. If it were me, I would definitely choose such a man," and so on. When He Lu looked up, he just happened to see this extremely faint smile. His gaze could not help but soften. At this moment, the sound of sirens came from outside. A police car had arrived. What's going on? Who's calling the police here? 2 uniformed policemen waved the crowd aside and walked in. Gu Shengyin stood up. "It's me, police comrade." She pointed at Zhong Cheng, who was still rolling on the ground holding his stomach. "This person on the ground is my ex-boyfriend. I caught him cheating and broke up with him. Today, he insisted on getting back together with me. I didn't want to, so he used violence on me." The police looked at Gu Shengyin and then at Zhong Cheng, who was lying on the ground, and were a little suspicious. Chapter 1581. After all, no matter how one looked at it, Zhong Cheng didn't look like the violent one. Gu Shengyin quickly added, "Officer, you can ask the onlookers. If my boyfriend hadn't come in time, I might have been hospitalized today." The people next to her also said that she wasn't lying. They said that the man was scary when he went crazy. The policeman pointed at Zhong Cheng on the ground hesitantly. "Then what is he doing?" Gu Shengyin said, "He rushed over to hit me. My boyfriend was defending himself." The policeman was speechless. It was also okay to beat someone up in self-defense until they couldn't get up. But looking at the reaction of the people around, this lady didn't seem to be lying. He thought about it and asked another person to help Zhong Cheng back to the police station. He said to Gu Shengyin and He Lu, "I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to come with me to make a statement." Before Gu Shengyin could say anything, He Lu took out something and handed it over. "My girlfriend was quite frightened today. She doesn't want to see that person again. Can I go with you?" The policeman took the small notebook in confusion. When he looked at it, his hand trembled and he almost dropped it on the ground. This. His attitude instantly became respectful, and he politely handed the item back with both hands. "How can we trouble you? This young lady seems to have suffered quite a shock. It would be better for you to accompany her to the hospital for a checkup. When it's convenient for you to make a statement, you can make it up." The policeman didn't expect that a casual relationship dispute would involve such a big shot. If he really took the man in for a statement, the chief would probably let him go tomorrow. He Lu wasn't surprised by this result. He put away the notebook and nodded. Okay, I'll make it up another day. Now, take her to the hospital first. The policeman watched them leave with a very friendly attitude. The onlookers had been watching a good show. In the end, the policeman's attitude added a layer of mystery to this big show. This lady's boyfriend was not only handsome and good at fighting, but the key was that he seemed to have a strong background. He Lu and Gu Shengyin walked for a while until they were far away from that place. No one followed them. Gu Shengyin exhaled and pressed her forehead. She raised her head and smiled at the man who was a head taller than her. Thank you so much for today. He Lu shook his head. It's nothing. Gu Shengyin thought for a moment and said, You've helped me so much, but I still don't know your name. She took the lead and stretched out her hand. My surname is Chong Yuji. The heaviness of overlapping, the rain of clouds dissipating and rain clearing. He Lu looked at the fair palm in front of him and slowly placed his hand on it. He gently held the hand that was very slender compared to his own. I'm He Lu, he as in celebration, Lu as in higher level. When he let go, He Lu subconsciously twisted his fingers, and a trace of reluctance flashed through his heart. Gu Shengyin looked at the time. She had been delayed for so long. She suggested, It's getting late. As a thank you, I'll treat you to dinner. He Lu was surprised. Don't you need to go home for dinner? Gu Shengyin shook her head and asked, Do you have an appointment? He Lu shook his head. Gu Shengyin laughed. That's good. I know a very good seafood restaurant. Let's go. He Lu followed her silently and took out his mobile phone to send a message to He Lu. I have something to do tonight. I won't go home for dinner. Don't wait. Chapter 1582. He Chi, who had just returned home from work, saw the text message and scolded with a smile. This kid specially asked his sister-in-law to cook his favorite dishes, and now he's telling me that he's not going home to eat? He Lu didn't care what his second brother was thinking. The place Gu Shengyin recommended was very good, and the two of them ate happily. After dinner, He Lu sent Gu Shengyin back. There was soothing music playing in the car. Coupled with the fact that they had just finished eating, Gu Shengyin felt drowsy. He Lu suddenly asked, When are we going to get the marriage certificate? Gu Shengyin was startled awake by this sentence. She quickly sat up straight and looked at He Lu. What did you just say? He Lu saw Gu Shengyin's expression in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth was slightly open in surprise, revealing a hidden bright red tip of her tongue. She looked like a frightened rabbit. It was inexplicably delicious. He repeated his words calmly. I said, when are we going to get the marriage certificate? Gu Shengyin was still a little dazed. Obviously, she couldn't keep up with his rhythm. He Lu kindly reminded her. You said this afternoon that we were about to get married. Gu Shengyin, she said with some difficulty, that, didn't you say it to anger Zhong Cheng? He Lu, so. Gu Shengyin smiled. So, you can't take it seriously, right? The car suddenly braked and stopped. He Lu turned his head and looked at Gu Shengyin intently. Gu Shengyin was a little scared by such a gaze. He Lu looked at her nervous appearance and felt funny in his heart. Did he look so scary? But on the surface, he still looked expressionless. Do you know who I am? Gu Shengyin nodded. The daughter of the Zhong family wasn't an idiot. Coupled with the police's reaction earlier, there was a problem if she said that she didn't know. He Lu was very satisfied with this answer. He continued, since you know who I am, then you must have some understanding of my character. You should also know that I, He Lu, have never said anything false. Gu Shengyin almost instantly understood what he meant. So what he meant was that even if the two of them were pretending at the beginning, since both of them said such words, the fake had to become true. Gu Shengyin blinked and blinked again, trying his best to calm himself down. But it was no use. She said carefully, but for things like marriage, it's better for both of us, there is no emotional foundation. Although she was happy to do so, she still had to say what she needed to say because of Chung Yuji's identity. He-Lu frowned. Who said there is no emotional foundation? Gu Xingyin. He-Lu unfastened his seatbelt with one hand and turned to look at Gu Xingyin. You don't think that I'm the kind of person who will be kind enough to save a random person I see on the road, do you? Gu Xingyin. So I have feelings for you. He-Lu said. As for you. He looked at Gu Xingyin and suddenly bent down. The space in the car was small. When he was so close, Gu Xingyin only felt that her whole breath was filled with He-Lu's smell. That light and distant lotus smell was a smell that belonged only to her. 80 chapters. Please reward me. Chapter 1583. She couldn't help blushing. Gu Xingyin didn't need to look to know that she must be blushing at this moment. He-Lu was very satisfied with her reaction. He said, Look, you blushed when you were in contact with me like this. You were nervous. It means that you still have feelings for me. Gu Xingyin, did that count? She forced herself to say, no matter who it is, it's impossible for him not to have feelings for me. After she finished speaking, she felt that the charming atmosphere around her suddenly became cold. Although He-Lu's expression didn't change at all, Gu Xingyin knew that this man was unhappy. He-Lu didn't step back. On the contrary, he moved closer again, and they could smell each other's breath. He-Lu's low voice sounded in the car, Do you feel disgusted that I'm so close to you first? Gu Xingyin didn't say anything, but her face turned redder. This reaction obviously pleased He-Lu. He moved closer again. This time, he touched Gu Xingyin's lips firmly. His lips and tongue didn't go deep. Instead, he gently sucked Gu Xingyin's lower lip. There was no extra movement, but there was a hint of affection lingering around the two of them. He-Lu looked at Gu Xingyin like this. He let go of her lips. Do you feel disgusted that I'm like this? Gu Xingyin closed her eyes. She already knew what He-Lu meant. He was forcing her to admit that he was different to her. Her body and her reaction couldn't lie. She didn't feel disgusted by his touch. She knew his purpose, but she couldn't do anything about it. This man, even if he used an overt scheme that you could see through, could still make you speechless. He-Lu suddenly laughed out loud. If another man treated you like this, would you do the same? Gu Xingyin suddenly opened her eyes. She looked at the man who was close to her and sighed in her heart. She took the initiative to put her hand around his neck and put her lips on his. At this point, there was no point in being pretentious. He-Lu was surprised by her initiative, but he quickly reacted. He bent down and kissed her fiercely. After a long time, the two of them finally separated. He-Lu's voice sounded a little breathless. He leaned against Gu Xingyin's forehead and whispered, Tomorrow, I will visit your house. Gu Xingyin shook her head. He-Lu was puzzled. Why? Gu Xingyin said, My father is the only one in the Chong family. My father. She didn't finish her sentence, but He-Lu understood what she meant. His brother had mentioned the things that Zhongming had done at home. He held Gu Xingyin's hand and said, It's okay, Yuji. I'm with you because I'm with you. It has nothing to do with your father. He didn't have much time off, so he wanted to settle this matter before he returned to the army. He knew it was rushed, but he didn't want to wait. He-Lu was like this. It was difficult for him to take a person to heart, but if he really did, he wouldn't hesitate at all and wouldn't allow anyone to treat her badly. Don't worry. I'll do everything well. Gu Xingyin's eyes flashed. She met the man's determined gaze and didn't object in the end. He-Lu was in a good mood as he sent Gu Xingyin home. Then he called home on the way back. He had found his future wife. Hurry up and prepare the gift and wedding. The He family was in chaos. Chapter 1584. When He Lu returned home, He Chi had already received the news. He and his wife sat in the living room with serious expressions on their faces as they waited for He Lu to come back. He Lu wasn't surprised at all that they had such a reaction. He walked to the other side of the sofa and sat down. Then he said, "What do you want to ask?" He Chi and his wife's eyes lit up and they were about to speak. Then they heard He Lu say slowly, "Don't ask first. I'll tell you when we get home tomorrow." He Chi and his wife. This feeling of knowing that there was a secret right in front of them but being able to pry it out was really uncomfortable. But no matter how unhappy they were, they could only hold it in. If He Lu wasn't willing to say it, no one would know. So the next morning, He Chi and his wife got up early. After they packed everything, they returned to the He family mansion with He Lu. When the three of them arrived home, they found that the house was already full of people. Even their brother, who had always been very busy, had gone home. Seeing that his brother was looking at him, He Ji calmly adjusted his glasses and said calmly, "Today is the weekend." He Chi. Haha, don't think that I know that you've never had a weekend. To be honest, every time he saw He Ji's busy appearance, He Chi was especially glad that he chose the path of business. Now that his business was on the right track, he had extra time to travel around the world with his wife and daughter. He Lu faced the burning gazes of the whole family alone. However, he didn't feel nervous at all. Instead, he felt that it was very good. Most of the important people in the He family were here. If there were any questions, he could explain it all at once. There was no need for someone to suddenly appear and ask him all sorts of questions. The He family members looked around. In the end, Old Master He coughed lightly and said, "He Lu, you called back yesterday to say that you found your future daughter-in-law?" He Lu nodded with a serious expression. "Yes, grandfather. I've confirmed my relationship with her and am preparing to marry her." This, Old Master He's heart skipped a beat. He asked, "Which family is she from?" He Lu said, "Lu Qingshan's granddaughter, Zhong Minggong's daughter." Old Master He didn't know much about the business world, so he turned to He Chi. He Chi roughly explained the background of the Lu family and the Zhong family. Old Master He nodded. Her family background can be considered clean. In other words, he was not dissatisfied with Gu Xingyin's identity. In reality, even if he wasn't satisfied, He Lu wouldn't listen to him. Old Master He also asked, "Why haven't I heard you mention this before?" Logically speaking, they were already talking about marriage. With He Lu's personality, he shouldn't be so secretive. Hearing this, He Chi wanted to cover his face and laugh. As far as he knew, his younger brother had only gotten to know him after he returned home from his long vacation. How could there have been any rumors about him before? He Lu didn't hide anything. "I haven't known her for long. We just confirmed our relationship yesterday." Old Master He. Yesterday they confirmed their relationship, and today they were talking about marriage? Even though Old Master He knew that his grandson was very efficient, this was a little too fast. He Lu's parents weren't as conflicted as Old Master He. In their eyes, it was a good thing that their son was willing to get married. Old Master He had many grandchildren, but they only had one son. They were still waiting for their grandchildren. Chapter 1585. He Lu could also see Old Master He's dilemma. He directly expressed his position. "Grandfather, I like her and want to marry her. No woman has ever made me feel this way." What he meant was that it was love at first sight and he didn't want to marry anyone else. Old Master He looked at the grandson who resembled him the most. He sighed in his heart and said, "Find a time to bring her back for a look. Marriage is such a big thing. You have to let the elders take a look." He Lu nodded. "Okay, I'll take care of this before I return to the army." When he came out of the He family's old residence, He Lu was pulled aside by his impatient parents. He Lu's mother was in the arts and had been spoiled by He Lu's father her whole life. She was already in her 40s, but her personality was still very romantic. "Xiao Lu, is the girl you like pretty?" she asked her son. Father He was helpless. Other people's elders would ask about their character and family background. Her mother-in-law, on the other hand, only cared about these things. He Lu answered her seriously, "She's very pretty, Mom." Mother he smiled happily when she heard that. She loved beautiful things the most and naturally hoped that her son could find a pleasing daughter-in-law. If an ordinary person heard this madam's requirements for choosing a daughter-in-law, they would probably be speechless. The next morning, He Lu brought gifts to the Zhong family's house. Chong Ming heard from his daughter that her boyfriend would be coming the next day. When he heard that it wasn't Zhong Cheng, Father Chong threw a tantrum. But Gu Shengyin wasn't afraid of him. In the end, Chong Ming Gang still chose to stay at home. No matter what, if he wanted to be the Zhong family's son-in-law, he had to be decent. He was afraid that his daughter's taste wasn't good and she found someone with a bad family background and character. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if word got out? But the next day, when he saw He Lu in a trench coat and carrying a gift box, Father Chong thought he was hallucinating. He had seen He Lu before. At a charity dinner hosted by He Chi, He Lu happened to be free at that time, so he was dragged by his brother to support the event. Chong Ming Gang found some connections and squeezed his way out. He threw a few million yuan and stood far away, watching the He family surrounded by countless important people. At that time, He Lu was like this, standing expressionlessly beside He Chi. He saw her, but it was obvious that she didn't notice him at all. But now, this man, who was said to have become a major general at a young age, was actually her daughter's boyfriend? Chong Ming just felt like he was still asleep. But He Lu's cold face and his daughter's normal expression told him that this was not a dream. Her daughter had found a major general as her boyfriend, and he was from the He family. After a brief moment of surprise, they were overjoyed. If his daughter managed to get close to the He family, then he would be the He family's in-law. At that time, who wouldn't give him some face in the business world? Chong Ming Gang's face was full of joy the entire morning. When the few of them were chatting, he never stopped praising them. He even asked about He Lu and Gu Shengyin's future plans. He couldn't wait to pack up Gu Shengyin and send her to him. Gu Shengyin felt embarrassed as she listened. They had lunch at the Chong family's house. After lunch, He Lu said goodbye. Gu Shengyin also used the excuse of seeing him off and walked out with him. Chapter 1586. Thank you for your hard work. He Lu suddenly reached out and held Gu Shengyin's hand. He only came over today to chat with Chong Minggang for a while, but he could see that Chong Minggang didn't have much sincerity for this daughter. It was obvious that he was most concerned about his career. He felt sorry for Gu Shengyin for such a father. Gu Shengyin shook her head. Actually, he wasn't harsh on me. If you could have known me earlier, you could have met my mother. Thinking of Lu Qinghe, that gentle and beautiful woman appeared in her memory. My mother gave me all her love. If she met you, she would definitely like you very much. He Lu held her hand tightly. If I treat you well in the future, Auntie's soul in heaven will be happy to see it. Gu Shengyin smiled and nodded. In the afternoon, they went to the Lu family. This was requested by He Lu himself. After he returned home yesterday, He Chi went to find him and told him some things he found out. Obviously, the Lu family was more like her family than Chong Minggang. And in Gu Shengyin's heart, the Lu family was probably closer than the Chong family. So if she wanted to meet the parents, He Lu was willing to accompany Gu Shengyin to the Lu family. Gu Shengyin was stunned for a moment after hearing his plan. Then, he slowly smiled. Thank you, He Lu. He Lu just held her hand tightly and didn't say anything. Without a doubt, He Lu's arrival shocked the entire Lu family. Because it wasn't announced in advance, only Old Master Lu, Lu Qingshan, and Gu Shengyin's eldest aunt were at home. Then, Gu Shengyin brought He Lu into the house in broad daylight. Old Master Lu was drinking tea at that time. When he saw the man who Gu Shengyin called Old Master Lu behind, he almost choked. He forced himself to calm down, and then tried to ask what happened as calmly as possible. Gu Shengyin told He Lu about how he and He Lu met in a few sentences. He Lu listened quietly at the side. During this time, Elder Lu's gaze never left the two of them. Although He Lu's expression was cold, his eyes were always on his granddaughter. When he saw that He Lu had personally poured tea for her, he lowered his gaze and sighed in his heart. If I'm not mistaken, General He and our Yuji have only known each other for less than a week, right? Elder Lu still remembered the scene when Gu Shengyin asked who that man was. He Lu's gaze was very sincere. I feel that time does not represent everything. I only know that when I first saw Yuji, there was a voice in my heart telling me that it was her. His gaze met Elder Lu's weathered eyes, and he did not back down at all. I can be sure that in this life, there will never be another woman who can give me such a feeling. I will definitely not let Yuji down. Such words were not enough to move Elder Lu's expression. Empty words have no proof. Our Lu family cannot be compared to the He family. What if Yuji is wronged in the future? He Lu was not angry at all in the face of such doubts. In his opinion, it was normal for the Lu family to be so concerned about Gu Shengyin. Chongming Gang looked like he couldn't wait to sell a product. There was no hesitation in his tone. With me, He Lu, around, I will not let Yuji be wronged in the slightest. Okay. Elder Lu looked at him. I heard that General He's words are worth 1,000 gold, and you never lie. I hope you can really do it. Chapter 1587. At first, the atmosphere between Elder Lu and He Lu was still a little tense. Gu Shengyin was worried that the two of them would argue. She didn't expect that the more they talked, the more they got along, and the more the smile on her grandfather's face became. When he heard He Lu say that he knew how to play chess, Elder Lu's eyes lit up. General He, are you willing to play a few rounds with me? He Lu said, Elder Lu, just call me He Lu, otherwise, Xiao He and Xiao Lu are fine too. When he said this, it meant that he really treated Elder Lu as an elder. One had to know that he didn't say such things in front of Chongming Gang. Elder Lu laughed. Then I'll be thick-skinned and call you Xiao He. If you don't mind, you can call me Grandpa Lu. After all, the relationship between the two of them hadn't been officially established yet, and they didn't know what the He family's attitude was. Elder Lu couldn't let people call him Grandpa directly. He Lu nodded slightly and called, Grandpa Lu. Elder Lu was in a good mood when he heard this. He invited He Lu into the study to play chess. He turned around and called Gu Shengyin's first aunt, saying that Yuji had brought her boyfriend over. He asked second brother and third brother to bring their wives over to meet him. When the two of them entered the study, first aunt gave Gu Shengyin a thumbs up. Gu Shengyin lowered her head slightly and smiled as if she was embarrassed. When it was almost dinner time, the Lu family came over one after another. When they heard that Gu Shengyin's boyfriend was playing chess with Elder Lu in the study, they were all surprised. One had to know that Elder Lu's study was very precious. If it wasn't someone who had really gained his approval, he wouldn't let them in easily. It seems that Yuji's boyfriend has really caught father's eye, second aunt said with a smile. They still didn't know He Lu's identity. When He Lu accompanied Elder Lu downstairs, the three brothers of the Lu family were all stunned. Fortunately, the three of them weren't inexperienced. Although they were surprised, they maintained their poise and greeted He Lu with a smile. It was a sumptuous dinner, and they had a good time. When Gu Shengyin sent He Lu home, he held Gu Shengyin's hand. Your family is very good. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but nod when she thought of the Lu family who treated her like a treasure. He Lu thought for a moment and said, I'll pick you up tomorrow. Gu Shengyin was puzzled. What are you doing? He Lu's face was calm. Meet my parents and grandfather. Gu Shengyin. Is it really okay for you to talk about such an important matter in such a casual tone? Why are you in such a hurry? She asked. He Lu nodded. It's rare for me to have a long holiday. I'll be returning to the army in 5 days. Before I go back, I want to settle things with you. He was always greedy and wanted to settle down early. In this way, everyone would know that this girl belonged to He Lu and no one would dare to have any ideas about her. Those who wanted to bully her would think twice before making a move to see if they could withstand He Lu's wrath. Gu Shengyin raised her head and looked at He Lu. The wind at night was a little strong, but he stood there like a barrier that would never fall. He blocked all the wind and noise outside and couldn't touch her at all. She nodded. Okay. Chapter 1588. After Gu Shengyin sent He Lu off and returned to the Lu family, she was immediately interrogated by her curious uncles and aunts. She sighed and simply explained how she and He Lu met, knew each other, and then got together. Of course, the part in the car was too embarrassing, so she glossed over it a little. That's it. Third aunt was a little surprised. Gu Shengyin nodded innocently. Second aunt, who had a fiery temper, was also in disbelief. So, the two of you have only known each other for less than 2 weeks and you're already talking about marriage? Gu Shengyin nodded again. Everyone in the Lu family was speechless. It was simply the most standard of a flash marriage. But when they saw how Gu Shengyin and He Lu interacted with each other, they felt that there was a tacit understanding between them. They didn't seem like a young couple who had just confirmed their relationship. Maybe it's really fate? First aunt concluded. Gu Shengyin stayed at the Lu family's house that night. Chong Ming had just called to ask, but Gu Shengyin casually found an excuse to dismiss him. When they found out that Gu Shengyin was going to the He family's house tomorrow, the aunts were very concerned about this matter. Actually, if the other party was from an ordinary family, they wouldn't be so worried. It was because the He family's status was too high that they were nervous for Gu Shengyin. They were afraid that she wouldn't do well and would be looked down upon. Actually, Gu Shengyin wasn't that nervous. She was probably the calmest one out of them all. After all, she had experienced all sorts of things. It wasn't easy for her to be nervous again. She had even met so many gods. Really, meeting her boyfriend's parents wasn't a big deal. The next day, when He Lu came to pick her up, he specially told her not to be nervous. Gu Shengyin smiled and said that she really wasn't nervous. Just as she had expected, the He family was a century-old family. They actually had a good upbringing and wouldn't make things difficult for a junior. She felt quite relaxed. After she left, Old Master He and He Lu's parents thought highly of her. Old Master He, calm in the face of change, dignified and generous. She's a good match. This was a normal evaluation from an elder. He Lu's father, she's a good girl. Her family background, personality, and style of conversation are all outstanding. This was an affirmation from her boyfriend's father. He Lu's mother, I like this daughter-in-law. She's very pretty. This was the highest compliment a granny could give her. In short, there were no problems. Both parties had a good relationship, and their families were satisfied. To He Lu, it meant that they could get their marriage certificate. He and Gu Shengyin had agreed that the wedding would be held after his next wedding leave, but they could get the marriage certificate first. Gu Shengyin was helpless against the man's persistence. However, she still agreed to his request very indulgently. When they came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Gu Shengyin was a little surprised. This was the first time she had gotten a marriage certificate without even going through a proposal. Now that he thought about it, it was a little novel. The two of them did not tell anyone about the marriage certificate. This was also what He Lu said. He was afraid that people would look down on Gu Shengyin because of this, because there was no wedding. Wait for me to go to the military and submit the application immediately. Yuji. He lowered his head and kissed her forehead gently. When I come back, I'll hold a grand wedding for you and let everyone know that you're my wife. Okay. Chapter 1589. After the two registered their marriage, He Lu accompanied Gu Shengyin to the mall. He didn't usually come to places like this, but he knew that girls usually liked places like this. Gu Shengyin wasn't very passionate about this, but she saw He Lu's intentions and didn't reject him. Coincidentally, she saw a familiar face in the mall. And when She was still dressed in branded clothes and was holding a friend's arm. The two of them were carrying a few big shopping bags and were chatting with smiles on their faces. Gu Shengyin even heard the girl beside Anwan say enviously, "Anwan, you're so rich now. The daughters of rich families are indeed different. Any piece of clothing here is worth 2 months of my salary." Gu Shengyin stopped in her tracks and stood there with a faint smile. Anwan listened to the compliments of the girl beside her proudly. She liked this feeling. Then, she raised her head and saw Gu Shengyin looking at her. Anwen's heart skipped a beat. The girl beside her was still chattering. Anwan felt embarrassed and quickly patted her hand. "Stop talking." The girl was still a little confused. Following Anwen's gaze, she saw Gu Shengyin and He Lu not far in front of them. With just one glance, her eyes revealed a look of amazement. This pair of man and woman, if placed in a crowd, would definitely be a very eye-catching existence. If the two of them stood together, they would be even more eye-catching. There were even passers-by who secretly looked around, suspecting that it was just two celebrities taking photos on the street. "Wan, who is this?" The girl secretly tugged at the corner of Anwen's shirt. Anwen looked at Gu Shengyin a little unnaturally. "The eldest daughter of the Chong family." The girl's eyes lit up. "The eldest daughter of the Chong family, then isn't that your—" Anwen's hand pinched her arm hard and the girl instantly stopped talking. Anwen was actually quite embarrassed. She had pretended to be the daughter of a wealthy family and flaunted her wealth in front of her friends, but in the end, she was caught red-handed by someone who knew the truth. What Anwen was most afraid of was being found out by Gu Shengyin. After all, she knew very well that she had no status in front of Gu Shengyin. She was afraid that Gu Shengyin would expose her on the spot. If that happened, she would really be embarrassed. In the end, Gu Shengyin's eyes slowly fell on her, and then swept down. She looked at the pile of luxury brands and did not say anything. She turned her head to He Lu and said, "Let's go." He Lu didn't know who Anwen was, but he could see that Gu Shengyin didn't like her. Hearing Gu Shengyin's words, he nodded and left with Gu Shengyin. From the beginning to the end, Gu Shengyin had no intention of talking to Anwen. Anwen stood where she was and watched the two of them walk past as if they didn't exist. Her friend whispered, "Isn't the eldest daughter of the Chong family your sister? Why is she ignoring us?" Anwen forced a smile and said, "She has always been arrogant and has never treated me as a sister." Her friend said, "Oh," to show that she understood. Immediately, her attention turned to another matter. "Is the man beside your sister her boyfriend? He's so handsome." Anwen was a little absent-minded. "Maybe." On the other side, He Lu looked at Gu Shengyin and asked, "That girl just now, is she someone you know?" Chapter 1590. Although this was a family scandal, Gu Shengyin felt that there was nothing that couldn't be said. She briefly told He Lu about Anshi and her daughter. "That girl just now was the cheap sister that lived in my house for a while." He Lu's face darkened. The matter between Zhou Minggang and Madame Anne and her daughter was not a secret in the capital circle. Many people secretly laughed at Zhou Minggang for being devoted his whole life. In the end, when his wife died, he showed his true colors. He Lu of course didn't know about this, but He Qi did. Especially after knowing that the eldest daughter of the Zhong family might become his future sister-in-law, he told He Lu everything he knew about the Zhong family. If it was someone unrelated to him, He Lu naturally wouldn't spend any effort on it. But when the pitiful daughter in the story became the person he cherished, He Lu said in a low voice, "So after that woman was kicked out of the Zhong family, she still flaunted her identity as the daughter of the Zhong family. Why didn't you expose her?" Gu Shengyin shook her head. "In a place like the business center, there are too many familiar people. If I quarreled with her, no matter what the result was, it would be a loss of face for the Zhong family." She said, "The An family's mother and daughter were kicked out of the Zhong family, but I saw today that Anwen is clearly living the life of a young lady. People like them don't need others to do anything, they can just kill themselves." Gu Shengyin wasn't wrong at all. An Yen and Anwen were kicked out of the Zhong family by the furious Chong Ming gang. Other than the clothes on their body and their own documents, they didn't take anything out. And in the past few years, they didn't save a single cent of the money that Chongming Gang gave them. Under these circumstances, the only asset left of the Yin family's mother and daughter was the apartment that they bought in the early years. In the capital, an apartment was worth a lot of money. And Yen had been raised by Chongming Gang all these years, and had long become a rich lady who only knew how to drink tea, play, and shop. Asking her to go out and work to earn money? Obviously, it wasn't realistic. And when, although she had the title of a graduate from a famous university, she didn't have any experience. She went to many companies to interview, but the salary that was offered couldn't meet her requirements. It was still the same sentence. Chongming had just raised her heart. Relying on ordinary work alone couldn't sustain her demand for famous brands. Moreover, An herself didn't care about that little bit of salary that couldn't even afford to buy a handbag if she worked herself to death. So the mother and daughter thought about it, and sold their house in the capital. The house was sold for a large sum of money. If they had a good life, it would be enough for them to buy a house in a small city and live a carefree life. But obviously, the Yin family's mother and daughter weren't people who were willing to live a mediocre life. Today's and when's. She loosened her grip and instantly returned to the style of a rich young lady. Gu Shengyin took a quick glance at the clothes she was wearing today. The total cost of the entire outfit was more than 6 digits. Gu Shengyin didn't need to dirty his hands to deal with people like this. By the time they spent all their money, based on their style, it would be the end of the road for them. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.